Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. We are very pleased to have the opportunity to share the experience of BancoSol and to have a very, hopefully, engaging discussion with our panelists today. I'm Lisa Guzman, Vice President of Client Strategy and Gender Lead at Acción Advisory, and I'm very glad to be here with you today. I will be moderating our conversation today. The webinar will be mostly in English since we have attendees from everywhere, which makes us very, very happy, and with simultaneous translation into Spanish. So you can select the option in the settings to choose your preferred language. At the bottom of your screens, there is an interpretation feature that can be enabled by clicking on the globe icon. So I'll just give you some seconds for everyone to be ready with the translation in case you need it. Okay, so welcome to the webinar, Capital Markets as an Instrument to Close the Gender Gap, the Avanza Mujer Bond, a success story in Bolivia. This is a proposal, a webinar that both BancoSol and Acción put together seeking to address and amplify the relevance of investing with a gender lens and its social impact. Thank you for joining us again. So let's start this conversation recognizing the significant strides that have been made in terms of gender equality in recent years. Our efforts have important outcomes. However, there are still gaps and challenges that need to be addressed. So let me mention a few of them. First, according to the recently released World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Report, it will take us about 134 years to achieve full gender parity, which means 5 generations after the target set by the SDGs for 2030. In terms of gender gaps, the health and survival gap are the most close at 96%, followed by education with 95%, both very fundamental, of course, for development. However, we still see a huge gap of 22% in women's political engagement and in participation and economic empowerment at 60%. According to the World Bank, reducing the gender gap in employment could increase per capita GDP growth by an average of nearly 20% across all countries over the long term. For all these reasons, among others, of course, investing in women's economic empowerment directly is crucial to close the gender inequality gap, to eradicate poverty, and to foster inclusive economic growth. In this context, it is essential to explore how capital markets are a vehicle for expanding access to finance for women entrepreneurs and business owners, especially given that the financing gap in Latin America amounts to nearly $100 billion, and in Bolivia, the underserved demand for business credit for women stands at $7 billion. So here we are today to discuss the power of capital markets to close the gender gap, and learn more about BancoSol's recent experience using this type of financing tools. The Avanza Mujer Bond issued by BancoSol in Bolivia, a country where the gender gap stands at 73%, is an example of how capital markets can funnel resources towards projects that promote gender equality. Such initiatives not only benefit women, but also have a multiplier effect on their families, communities, and contribute to the economic growth of the countries. So to address this topic, let's start. So we have Julie Becker, CEO of the Luxembourg Stock Exchange and founder of Luxembourg Green Exchange, who will join us to discuss the role of capital markets in sustainable financing and closing gender gaps. After her presentation, we will have a panel discussion with Maricela Alvarenga, Acting General Director of Business Development at the IDV, and Veronica Gavilanes, Deputy General Manager at BancoSol. To conclude, Stefan Alschul, Chairperson of the BancoSol Board of Directors and President of Impact Management and Acción, will provide closing remarks. So let me welcome everyone again, and especially to Julie Becker, our keynote speaker. So very briefly, Julie Becker, for those who don't know her, has been at the helm of the Luxembourg Stock Exchange since April 2021. and named Deputy CEO in 2019 and CEO 2 years later. Her career in the financial sector in Luxembourg spans over 2 decades and includes positions at the Central Bank of Luxembourg and Dexia, among many others. So, Julie, welcome again, and I'm very honored to have you here. I'm very personal admire your work and your career, and so can't wait to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Lisa, for this kind introduction. Thank you very much for having me today. It's an honor to be able to address the audience with this keynote. So, ladies and gentlemen, good morning from Luxembourg, and I'd like to start this keynote by thanking BancoSol for inviting me to speak today, and I take this opportunity also to commend and congratulate BancoSol on the issuance of this first gender bond. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Luxembourg Stock Exchange, please allow me to give you a brief introduction to our work as an exchange and as the home of the world's leading platform for sustainable finance, the Luxembourg Green Exchange. The Luxembourg Stock Exchange is the world's leading exchange for the listing of international debt securities. And with this position comes, of course, with certain responsibility. And that's the reason why 8 years ago, we established the Luxembourg Green Exchange, or LGX, with the objective to help reorient capital flows towards investment projects with green and positive green and social outcomes. The scope and impact of the securities displayed on LGX have increased exponentially since 2016, and we've learned a lot in the process. LGX today is still the world's leading platform for sustainable securities, but also a meeting place for issuers of sustainable bonds and impact-conscious investors. Our mission is to bring sustainable investment opportunities to the international investment community and thereby mobilize private investment for sustainable development. LGX started as a platform for green bonds, but the scope was expanded to also include social and sustainability bonds in 2017. And then in 2022, we decided to put a specific focus on what we consider to be a new megatrend, namely gender finance. Since then, we have worked relentlessly to foster awareness of the importance of gender lens investing. I'm very pleased to be able to share some insights into what we have seen in this space over the last couple of years with you all now. So gender finance and gender lens investing in capital markets is about how we can mobilize international investors and redirect financial flows towards the UN SDG 5 to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. And there are good reasons to focus on this. As mentioned by Lisa in her introduction, in 2022, the Gender Employment Gap Index study indicated that, on average, across country, long-run GDP per capita would be almost 20% higher if all gender employment gaps were closed. 20% higher. So investing in projects and goals that ensure that we close the gender gap by accelerating women's economic empowerment is not just beneficial for women, for the global economy as a whole. And to advance gender equality in the real world, we need to advance gender equality in financial systems worldwide. Think about it. Women represent half of the world's population and half of the world's potential, even though many women and girls still lack access to the same rights, education, and opportunities as their male counterparts. And in many parts of the world, women still lack access to basic financial services. This is the issue we wanted to address from our unique position as an exchange, and we knew we could do more if we joined forces with institutions working towards the same goals. This is why we signed a memorandum of understanding with UN Women in 2022, through which we committed to work together to advance gender finance and gender lens investing and help mobilize capital for projects which contribute to the empowerment of women and girls. The first step we took was to create a dedicated gender-focused bond flag on LGX. This flag highlights the sustainable bonds displayed on our platform that are actively contributing to the gender equality agenda. So what are they? Gender-focused bonds can be social bonds, sustainability bonds, or sustainability-linked bonds. And what they have in common is that they all dedicate all or part of the proceeds raised to projects which contribute to gender equality goals and report on the allocation so that investors can verify that the issuers are delivering on their commitments. And I'd like to emphasize the role that we have chosen to undertake here in promoting increased transparency and clarity in the post-issuance reports of those gender-focused bonds. Because we have noticed that there's a significant need for improvement in post-issuance reporting. Currently, there's either a lack of reports on how funds are allocated to SDG funds, or insufficient details about the targeted population. Often reports vaguely refer to the vulnerable population rather than specifically targeting women. And these are missed opportunities for these bonds to truly qualify as gender-focused. However, today we are proud to display this flag on more than 70 gender-focused bonds on LGX from issuers across the world. The objective is to make it easier for investors to identify debt instruments that include a component that specifically support women and girls. But it's also about encouraging more and more issuers to prioritize and highlight their contribution to women's empowerment. I'd like now to share with you a couple of examples of gender-focused bonds currently included on LGX. First, I'd like to mention the gender bond from Pomura, which was listed on our exchange on International Women's Day in March this year. Pomura is an Argentinian nonprofit development organization, and this social bond was its debut on international capital markets. The proceeds from this gender bond, equivalent to $1 million, provide loans to more than 1,300 low-income women entrepreneurs in Argentina. And to illustrate that gender finance is a global phenomenon, I'd like also to move from Latin America to Africa for the second example. Last year, also at the occasion of the International Women's Day at our exchange, we celebrated the listing of the first gender bond from sub-Saharan Africa, issued by NMB Bank in Tanzania. This $32 million bond provides around 3,000 women in Tanzania with access to financing they need to start or grow their own business. It's also interesting to note that this specific gender bond was 297% oversubscribed, almost 300% oversubscribed, which shows great appetite from investors, certainly women investors, for gender bonds and financial instruments specifically targeting women's empowerment. The figures speak for themselves, and if we have a look at the investors in this gender bond, 69% were Tanzania-based investors, and more than half of the local investors were women, more than half. In other words, these gender bonds from Pomura and NMB Bank have allowed thousands of women in Argentina and in Tanzania to enjoy financial independence and build a future for themselves, but also their families and their communities. Because when women benefit, all communities and societies benefit as well. Gender finance is about using the power of international capital markets to reduce the gender gap in the world economy and create a global society where women and girls are given a fair chance to decide what their lives should look like, realize their dreams, and succeed. And for gender finance to grow, we need to strengthen the knowledge and education among market participants and beyond, and make it easier to access gender finance related data and insights. This is the reason why in June 2023, we held our first LGX academic course dedicated entirely to gender finance. This course is designed to help participants build their knowledge of gender finance and find out more about the role of capital markets in advancing gender equality. XSC will also build capacity in this field through the LGX assistance services by providing assistance to issuers wishing to bring not just gender bonds, but all types of sustainable bonds to the market, helping them navigate each step of the bond issuance process, and therefore building capacity and contributing to mainstreaming sustainable finance across the globe. We also conducted a market study on the state of the gender-focused bond market, which we published last year. And according to our findings at the time, gender-focused bonds account for only 2% of the world's listed sustainable bonds. Although this number is expected to grow in the coming years, it will require joint global efforts. As market operators with the power to facilitate or condition access to market financing, stock exchanges have a crucial role to play in this respect. I'm personally also involved in different working groups and task forces dedicated to advancing gender finance, such as the Gender Finance Task Force, established by Luxembourg's Ministry of Finance. If we fail to achieve SDG 5, gender equality, the risk is that it will be extremely difficult to deliver on the other sustainable development goals. Gender equality is key to climate action. Not only are women more affected by the impact of climate change, they are also more likely to take steps to address it. And research by the European Investment Bank reveals that women-led firms achieve great environmental, social, and governance scores. This is why we welcome the increasing focus on the climate-gender nexus, the crucial intersection between gender and climate. So it all starts with the economic empowerment of women, and there's unfortunately still a long way to go. According to the Gender Finance booklet published by UN Women last year, only 61% of prime working age women are in the labor force, compared to 90% prime working age men, 61 versus 90%. If current trend continues, 340 million women and girls will still live in extreme poverty by 2030. So progress needs to be 26 times faster to reach the no poverty goal by 2030. And capital markets can help turn this trend. This is why I'm so pleased to see BancoSol issuing its first gender bond. It's my hope that we will see a gender bond from BancoSol join other gender bond issuers on our exchange and NGX in the near future. Investors are increasingly investing according to their values and convictions. They want to understand the impact on their investment, what positive change they can help drive. As more and more women are starting to invest their money in financial securities, gender-lens investing is expected to gain traction. Together, we can advance gender equality and women's empowerment. But finance and capital markets, need to be part of the solution. BancoSol has shown its commitment to this through the issuance of this gender bond. And I hope that many others will follow suit. Because when women and girls benefit, everyone benefits. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Julie. Very inspiring, definitely, and it's really good to have you here, opening our discussion now with Marisela and Veronica. So thank you very much for joining us and for all the work that you have done so far, and for really, showing us the path. So thank you very much. Okay, so moving on. Well, let's have now our very hopefully interesting conversation about the opportunities and challenges of social bonds, right? In light of the recent issuance of BancoSol's $30 million in Bolivia. So, but let me first introduce our panelists. Again, so first, Marisela Alvarenga. She's the acting general director of business at IDV Invest. She has more than over 20 years of experience in the private sector, banking, and international organizations. Marisela is a prominent leader in promoting inclusion and sustainability in Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as in financial innovation to contribute to developing impact in the region. Currently, Marisela holds the position of acting general director for business development at the IDV Invest, the private sector branch of the Inter-American Development Bank, where she plays a pivotal role as a member of its executive committee. So, Marisela, thank you very much for being here and welcome again. And we have Veronica Gavilanes, Deputy General Manager at BancoSol. Veronica has been in banking for more than 20 years, and she has been the Deputy General Manager at the bank since 2022. Veronica is a leader committed to inclusive economic and social development. She's an expert in financial inclusion, sustainable development, change and culture management, and digital transformation. She has also successfully implemented diversity programs that have been recognized globally, focused on driving the advancement of women in various spheres. Veronica has worked for more than 2 decades in Ecuador at the largest financial group as general manager of Pichincha Microfinance, where she led the most significant financial inclusion operation in the country. In BancoSol, she has led the organization's strategy and sustainability and digital transformation, the smart gender inclusive banking model Avanza Mujer, and the issuing of the BancoSol Avanza Mujer social bonds. So here we are with these two very successful and again inspiring women who will join me in like talking more about their respective experience in like everything that has to do with that sustainability financing and let's see what else we can discuss today. So first of all, well, as Julie mentioned, obviously the market in the sustainability market has been growing, and we have seen these positive trends in the last more than 8 years. Like as you might remember, everything started mainly with the green bonds, and like private sector and public sector as well were very interested in this. But this, I guess, like example that we saw in the green bonds was very, very quickly replicated to the issuance of other bonds, as social bonds, gender bonds, of course, sustainability and sustainability-linked bonds. So we have seen, like these positive trends in the market, and specifically for social bonds, and that is related obviously to gender bonds. We have seen already a total amount of 821 billion issuance in social bonds. So definitely is something that is definitely a machine, an engine that is helping development. Last year, for example, we saw also a very positive scenario in the Asia Pacific region, which was the largest source of social bonds issuing. They issue about 65 billion last year, even surpassing Europe. So definitely it's a tool that everyone is using more and more. In the same year, countries like Saudi Arabia, the Philippines, Indonesia issued their very first social bonds, reflecting the global expansion of these social finance tools. And this year, of course, we were very happy to see BancoSol in Bolivia issuing the first ever social bond with a gender focus. And we are here to talk more about this successful experience. So maybe I'll start with you, Marisela. So we had a look at the recent Standard & Poor's report on the perspective for the region, and one of the numbers that caught my attention is that they said that they expect to see about 55 billion US dollars of issuance in social bonds in the region. So this is a very positive number. So Marisela, why don't you share with us what is the relevance and impact of sustainable financing in Latin America? And how does gender lens investing contribute to economic growth and gender equality in general?
Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you, Lisa, Veronica, and all the people from BancoSol and Acción for the invitation. I'm very happy and honored to be here discussing this really relevant topic for all of us, not only for the people that is joining the webinar, but also for the region. It's really important for the region. So we were talking about sustainable finance, and sustainable financing in Latin America and the Caribbean is a powerful tool, because it helps us transform the region's social, economic, and environmental landscape. You were mentioning about the numbers of S&P, but let me tell you another number. By the end of 2023, the global thematic bond issuance reached 4.4 trillion. Yet, Latin America only represents 4% of that. So there is a lot of potential. And now that you're mentioning the number of S&P, there is definitely interest, and the investors and issuers are also interested in this trend. So let me tell you a little bit of why it matters. It matters because it fosters long-term sustainable growth. Sustainable financing drives this economic development that is both environmentally responsible, but also socially inclusive, and it creates the foundation for the resilience of the region. This also reduces poverty and inequality. If we focus on sustainable financing, the projects will help elevate vulnerable communities, will support the access to finance, and address inequalities and improving the living standards. Another important topic here is that it mitigates risks. Why? Because it integrates also environmental, social, and governance principles into the financial strategies. And the companies themselves introduce the type of principles into their own business strategies, which also helps strengthen the economies. It's important, and now that we're talking numbers, it's how it attracts global investments. That is really important because there's billions of dollars out there that are trying to find these bankable projects and more sustainable projects in the region. So the region becomes very attractive to them as long as we continue issuing and focusing on sustainable financing. So going on the topic of the gender-focused investments specifically, the social gender bonds are vital. They're vital in promoting gender equality and economic growth. And these bonds are designed to fund the projects that empower women and close the gender gaps, yielding significant economic and social benefits. Globally, there are more than 400 million women-owned and led enterprises, but almost all, or between 70% to 90% said that they lack access of credit. So this is really important. And let me give you a few examples of why it benefits women and why it benefits the economy, because they boost economic productivity. Empowering women leads to increased productivity. When women gain access to credit and financial resources, they can contribute more significantly to the economy. They drive growth. Women make more than 70% of the financial decisions in their households. And by that, they contribute not only to the health of their families, their communities, but also the economy. And this links to another benefit, fostering social inclusion. Gender investments enhance access to education, healthcare, and employment for women, leading to more inclusive societies. Women invest more in health and education than men do. And women, and you were mentioning already this, that women represent 50% of the population. And in Latin America, they represent 60% of the graduated population. So even though they only represent 28% of the leadership positions. So investment in women represent really a change in social inclusion. And for the businesses, it also represents an opportunity and really a benefit because it improves the business outcomes. When companies prioritize gender diversity and also invest in women, they see better financial returns, better financial performance, and also innovation because the decision-making is also being diverse. On the other hand, they also attract different stakeholders that are now looking into what the private sector is doing and what the companies are doing in their own strategies. So by increasing sustainable and gender-focused investments, Latin America and the Caribbean build a more inclusive, resilient, and prosperous future. So thank you, Lisa.
Well, thank you very much, Maricela. That's a very compelling answer. And yeah, I totally agree. I think like just to add out just one very small point to what you just said is also, and this is what we have seen in Acción after all the research that we have done. Also, it's like there is a very huge difference in a woman's attitude when they have agency over their economic resources. And so that goes from just like being able to give an opinion to being able to be free from violence. So it's really, really key, everything that is happening. So it's not about, capital markets only. It's really about empowering women and just build a better world. So, well, with this context, Veronica, welcome again and congratulations on these very successful issuance of the bond. I would like for you to share, please, with the audience here, what inspired the bank to issue the bond? What were the drivers here, and what have you seen so far with the results that you have?
Muchísimas gracias, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I'll be addressing the question in Spanish. So first of all, special greetings and thanks to Marisela and Julie, and of course to you and our chairperson of the board, Esteban Alshut. Thank you for connecting to this webinar. Thanks to everyone who's seeing us worldwide. What really inspires us is the purpose of the bank. BancoSol, for 32 years, has been a pioneer in creating an inclusive banking model. The bank is a leader in new ways of doing responsible banking with great scope. And our mission is essentially social. We transform lives and we support those who believe in a better future, and women believe in a better future. We are a bank that is committed to financial inclusion in its broad sense, not just in access to quality products and services, but also in their use. The goal of financial inclusion is to achieve well-being and resilience. We are also very committed to closing the poverty gap and sustainable development gap. Therefore, it's natural, this evolution that we've had for several years now, where we've clearly established our sustainability strategy, looking at incorporating these very significant issues in the business: social impact, environmental impact, and governance. So our model leverages 7 pillars, or 11 of 7 of the 11 SDGs, where gender is a cross-cutting theme. Since 2022, we're also committed to the women's empowerment principles, and we are the very first bank in Bolivia to adhere to the responsible banking principles under the United Nations. This is also to find a leadership effect and a demonstrative effect in the local market. Therefore, promoting rights and opportunities for women in every aspect is key, in finance, in the workforce, and in the community. It is a strategic priority of the highest level here. And I would also add a few figures in addition to those that Julie and Marisela mentioned, focusing more on the local markets. In Bolivia, half of the population is women, and by 2024, they will be 48% of the economically active population. Bolivia has a very specific situation, though. 57% of women have work in informal enterprises, and small and medium enterprises are led by women in the country mostly. So there is a huge opportunity here. And you said this very well, Lisa. We have a gap in financial access to women at upwards of $16.9 billion. So there is an unattended or underserved market. In our case, as the bank with the largest number, with the most credit in the country, most women in Bolivia do receive credit from BancoSol, and women's credits are 43% of our portfolio, upwards of 1.8 billion. But there's still a lot more to do. And aware of this fact, we have developed and implemented since 2023 the Avanza Mujer, or advanced women. This is key to our strategy, where the goal is to boost progress in women-led businesses in Bolivia by supporting their growth and fostering something that was also mentioned by Marisela and Julie: financial autonomy. The program is a pioneer in the financial system, with the goal of offering this comprehensive proposition. On one side, the financial services for women-led businesses that make strategic sense, and on the other side, something that we really understood when we did our studies and listened to them was to understand, of course, the barriers and limitations, and the added value services have a significant component in education via tools and programs. These are key for women entrepreneurs to also empower their businesses and develop the skills, the financial skills that they need. Another driver for us was, of course, the economic autonomy for economic empowerment, because we do have to reduce poverty. Of every 10 women in Bolivia vulnerable due to poverty. Autonomy also helps to reduce violence. We all know about the global direct cost on the GDP that violence has, upwards of 2%. In Bolivia, 7 out of every 10 women have suffered some kind of violence in their life. And unfortunately, the country also has the highest rates of feminicide in Latin America. So that's also a very significant reason. By closing the gender gap, we must close the gender gap for the country's prosperity, but it's also a business opportunity for the financial sector. So we feel very proud for having taken this path and for having issued the very first gender bond called Avanza Mujer 1, which commits to the financial independence of women and to closing the sustainable gap. Thanks to the support from the IDB, who has ensured this bond by 50%, has made it so that we even have excess demand in the bond. We have a 5-year term in our bonds, and the market is very much committed. We've helped 4,500 businesses, women-led businesses throughout the country, and we are sure that we will continue to take this path with them for a better future for them, for their families, for communities, and for the country. I'm sure that will happen, Veronica. Thank you
very much for sharing with us all this journey. And maybe just very quickly, if you can share with us perhaps 2 or 3 challenges that the bank faced while trying to go through all this process. So maybe that can be also useful for other institutions that are here with us to inspire them to start their journey as well.
Thank you for your question. And of course, I think it is important to share experiences. And I think that one key challenge is deeply understanding the needs and preferences and behaviors, aspirations, and even the barriers that limit women in their financial access. That's really the only way of improving our value proposition and making it suitable. I must thank the support from the IFC that we had in this regard. And part of the challenge is really to identify and quantify the opportunities as a business case. Here, obviously, when women progress, we all progress. And that's why it's important that the aspirations of the bank be very clear when addressing women's markets. The second major challenge is also around being very consistent between what we do internally and externally. If we are to address the women's market, we must also internally establish specific action to promote a diverse and inclusive workforce and a culture that is based on respect with equality of opportunities for everyone. Marisela said this: diversity, inclusion, and equality is a key aspect, not just for women's markets, but also internally in organizations. Diversity provides better talent attraction, better dynamics in the organization, better innovation and creativity. And we've actually experienced this ourselves at the bank. So those would be the 2 main challenges.
Thank you very much for sharing those, Veronica. And as you said, yes, the IDB, IFC, they both were key institutions, right, over all this process. So I wanted to ask you, Marisela, what do you think is the role from now on from the development banks like the IDB, of course, in not only, keep strengthening this market, this capital market of social bonds, but also on closing the gender gap through the private sector, through, being innovative with these kind of tools. What do you think? What's your perspective and your hope, I guess?
No, thank you, Lisa. And I will say that development banks, and particular IDB Invest in this case, play a pivotal role. Pivotal role because we want to close the gender gap and we try to drive the economic empowerment for women across Latin America and the Caribbean. As part of the IDB group, We champion initiatives that enhances women access to finance. We build capacity and we promote gender-focused policies. So we go from the whole country, the public sector side, but also to focus on the different strategies that the institutions and the private sector itself can develop. So we support the private sector by offering a comprehensive value proposition that entails not only the financial solution, which is in this case is like the gender bond and the structuring of the gender bond, but also we provide advisory services and we help the issuers and the market. The issuers in sense of the structuring, the advisory services, so that the framework for the use of proceeds, it's really linked to what we're going to finance. So this is really important because it's aligned and it's defined for the market to feel the attractiveness and to feel comfortable investing in this type of issuances. So going to the capital markets itself, local and international debt markets have proven to be crucial in closing the significant investment gap needed to achieve also the Sustainable Development Goals. IDV Invest has also positioned itself as a leading partner for issuers. And as mentioned, we provide the financing, but also the technical assistance. So we can improve the product and the service offerings for the institutions, and so that they can also strengthen their own sustainability strategies. IDV Invest has supported the private sector clients in issuing 43 thematic bonds. And I remember the BancoSol was number 40. So it was very dear to our hearts because it was the number 40 bond that we supported in Latin America and the Caribbean. And we have supported $3.8 billion across the region. So this really demonstrates the commitment that we as Development Bank have and the development sustainable finance that we want to promote. And this is not only working with the clients, and I like what Veronica was mentioning about walking the talk, because we don't only work with the clients, but also internally. And IDV Invest has also issued and is committed to innovation in the capital markets by issuing itself gender bonds and social bonds. We issue actually one in 2021 in Mexico, in Mexican pesos, which is another challenge that I don't, Veronica didn't mention, but being able to issue in local currency, it's really important, and it's a challenge that not everybody can face. So this issuance is part of the commitment to the social, gender, and inclusion agenda. And since 2019, IDV Invest has structured and subscribed the issuance of 8 of such bonds. So for us, prioritizing gender equality represents an opportunity for organizations to also differentiate themselves, to achieve the social agenda and the social objectives, and meet the growing demand from investors. Gender bonds are an ideal vehicle to address these financing needs. Gender bonds are a great financial alternative to empower women from an economic, business, and social standpoint. I guess that our concrete example will go to the first gender bond issued by BancoSol in Bolivia. We supported it with a 50% guarantee that Veronica was mentioning, and it's really a milestone for the region. This bond, it's intended to benefit at least 4,500 micro and small businesses led by women. So the goal is to promote financial inclusion and the growth of these businesses, which in turn will contribute to the economic and social development of the communities where they operate. We are very proud to be joining forces with BancoSol and this project specifically, and we wanted to also congratulate them for moving their commitment to this agenda. So congratulations to BancoSol, and thank you very much, Lisa.
Thanks to you, Marcela, and for those great points that you have shared. I'm sure that many representatives of financial institutions will now see a more clear path approaching you to get your support. So that's great. But also, just maybe changing a little bit the topic, right? As we have discussed, I think like we're all clear. Yes, obviously, this market is crucial, right, to close the gender gap and to close many other gaps, right, that we are trying to close as society. However, to avoid concerns about social washing, it is also crucial to have a standardized set of metrics to measure the impact, right? So, I'm sure that we all have been in discussions where we have said, like, yes, it is important, but like, what is going to happen after, right? Is this only a marketing topic? What is the real substance of this? So Veronica, I would like for you to tell us how BancoSol is impacting women today, and what will be new or different with the Avanza Mujer bond funding, and what's the perspective also in terms of impact?
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That is, in fact, a key point to all institutions, the ability to measure impact. And obviously, looking at scope in figures. What I can tell you is that since the program has been launched all the way through August, we have seen significant trends in growth, both in number of customers, but also in the financial amounts. We are seeing a reduction in the financing gap in our own portfolio because of this effect, and also because of a significant effect in the raising of the amounts of credit issued to women. When we began, we knew that there was an opportunity to, well, obviously go through the first phase of financial inclusion, but also to support women-led businesses in their growth and consolidation with an intent. And that's a major differentiating factor to the Avanza Mujer project. We've also seen that the amount financed at a number of customers has had growth that is above, by 31% above the male portfolio, which ratifies the business case. Women's market is underserved. Hence, the speed of the portfolio's growth has been higher. Conversely, we've also had a great uptake in the added value services we provide. We know that we are being very assertive in every program that we've deployed. There are several that also have to do with the women businesses life cycle. Over 3,000 women have now been certified in these kinds of initiatives. And in fact, we have mentorships that are personalized for certain customer groups. And another significant topic is that together with the IDB, we will be diving deeper into our activities in rural areas and in the Amazon region with credits, somewhat larger credits, over $10,000, to ensure a good financial base for women-led businesses to grow in these specific areas, including identifying productive change that can empower the Amazonian economy in these regions. That is a challenge. And this goes together with measuring the social impact of these social bonds. We are using the FinEquity's reporting structure to look at women's empowerment and financial inclusion. So the most relevant indicators when it comes to measuring impact have to do with economic engagement, the trust in using financial services, financial autonomy, and the financial health, and the increase in incomes and resilience in women. Obviously, we are very committed in this process, and we are aware that we have to offer transparent information about our impact to understand how the benefits are truly made visible in women's lives. That is our commitment in terms of transformative governance and conscious leadership.
Muchas gracias, Verónica.
Thank you so much, Veronica, for sharing this. We do believe that that's actually what matters at the end of the day. Not just the plans you have underway, but that later, we hope to see that everyone here can see what you've achieved and what you've learned. Let me switch back to English. And before concluding our discussion, let me also tell you that
Acción has been very close of the process of BancoSol, obviously, and we are very glad to see how the organization has advanced in terms of its gender intentionality. BancoSol is one of the examples that we have very close in our family in Acción of our support to institutions to walk the journey from being gender neutral to not only intentional but transformative, because what we have seen, what we have observed in BancoSol's work is that they are really impacting the community, right? As you said, Veronica, is not only through financial services, but also to understand what are the other needs of women that in which they need support, so we can really push for a comprehensive development. So very, very happy to see that. So thank you very much to both of you for this discussion. I don't know if you want to do any closing remarks before we move to hear from Esteban, his closing notes. Anything in particular you want to share? Last seconds. Nope.
Okay, maybe just a little comment. It's important that the companies or the financial institutions that want to issue a gender bond or want to go into the capital markets have a strategy. And that's very important. And I like what Veronica was mentioning. It's part of their business, part of their strategy to support women entrepreneurs. So in the case that the companies don't have a strategy, at least let's build it, because it's important that you put your money where your mouth is, no? So it's important that we walk the talk, but not only go to the market without having a clear vision on what you want to achieve. And definitely moving the needle as BancoSol is doing, but being committed to measuring the impact that they are going to have with the issuance. It's really important. I know it's not an easy job, but this is where you want to really see the benefits when you impact the people and the lives of the people, and in this case the women entrepreneurs is where you want to be. So I really congratulate BancoSol for this initiative, and thank you, Lisa, again for the invitation.
Thanks to you. Okay, so we're reaching the end of our webinar, but before I want to introduce Esteban Ashul, President of Acción Impact Management and chairperson of the BancoSol board. Esteban serves as the president of Acción Impact Management, a platform for impact investing in Acción. Esteban, welcome, and thank you for sharing your reflections after this very engaging discussion.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, Marisela. And thank you, Julie. For me, it's really, truly an honor to be with four fantastic women leaders. I always learn a lot. And it's also, I have to say, we debated internally whether I should speak at all, since I'm a man. But in case there's any doubt, I did want to say that closing the gender gap is not just a business for women. We as men also have to do our part to close the gender gap, because by doing so, we benefit society, we make the world a better place, and we obtain better results, as we have seen from the data. So very proud to be part of this. I'm very proud to be chairperson of BancoSol. For us to be here working with IDB, that we couldn't have done this bond without you, without your 50% guarantee, although we're also part that our 50% in a very difficult context got us to achieve the results, and also the support of other global organizations like the Luxembourg Stock Exchange, whom we hope to work with in the future. So for BancoSol, it's really important that we think globally and act locally. And we act locally with our clients. As many of you, the speakers, have said, we have to be very intentional and very actionable. And we think always of the clients first. We have about 50% of our clients women. We dedicate, as Veronica explained, very specific products tailored to women's needs. We use data to support that product development, and we will continue to do so. In BancoSol, we are proud of being a global reference to many other organizations, and we will continue doing that in the gender space as well as in other spaces. Again, the context in Bolivia is incredibly difficult. So for me as chairperson, I'm so proud to work with Veronica and the entire team that are so committed to making a difference in women's lives and so focused on results, so focused on intentionality. Veronica, you mentioned the high femicide rate in Bolivia, among other very difficult contexts. And so making a difference in this space is truly something that we are very proud of. Last but not least, and you all said it, I think very importantly, we have to be coherent internally and externally. And as chairperson of BancoSol, I'm very proud that when I became chairperson, we had one woman board member. Now 50% of our total board members are women. And we had 1 out of 12 people in the senior management team only that were women. We're now at 35, 37%, but growing. And before I leave, I'm sure we will get to 50% because, again, we make a better organization with better results by supporting women. We appreciate everybody for joining us. Thank you again, Veronica and Marisela. In BancoSol, please read about us, follow our stories. We are very, very proud of what we are achieving in Bolivia in a difficult context and when we can set the stage for the rest of the world. So Lisa, back to you for your closing remarks. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Esteban. And no, I think like everything has been said. I think it's, the message is very clear. Maybe the only thing that I would say is like BancoSol has always been a leader in the industry, and they have always been very open to share and to bring different teams, different institutions to Bolivia. So I'm sure that that is still the case. So in case any financial institution here wants to start the journey, I'm very sure that you can reach out to Veronica, to the team in the bank, and we can all obviously support, and obviously as well to the IDV, who has been, as we have said, a key actor, stakeholder in all this process. So I think that's it. Marisela, thank you very much again for joining us. Veronica, thank you and congratulations. Esteban, Yuli, thank you. And everyone, thank you for joining us. Have a very good rest of your days. Thanks.